And welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the podcast. How is everyone tonight on this Tuesday night? I hope everyone had a wonderful long weekend. If you got a long weekend, don't forget to please subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends to subscribe. Don't forget, check out Mike McCormick's podcast from last week. It was amazing and unbelievable. So please check that out. That was crazy. Also, please give a thumbs up to the podcast. If you go back and you look at some older ones, please do that. As well. I have a friend here. I have Oliver with me who is who is very needy right now. So he wants his head rubbed. So I figure I can do that for him. Thank you to EB for doing all the graphics. Thank you to Zach for always being our biggest fan. So you know this guy, he is a fan favorite. He is also a super fun guy in real life. Like there's always hints of it when you see him on the air and when you read what he has to write. But in real life, he's really, really fun when he thinks nobody's watching. So without further ado, our fan favorite, Hans von Spakovsky. Hans, thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been such a long time since I've seen you.
I know. So dirty little secret, Hans and I spent some time together over the weekend. With our spouses.
Yeah, with our spouses.
He was so afraid I was going to say something incriminating. I would never do that to you, Hans. I love your wife. She's wonderful. So you can find Hans at the Daily Wire. He is with Heritage Foundation, which, the courtesy of Hans, I got to see the new and improved Heritage Foundation. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh. I figure I could just hang out there and it would take people weeks to find out that I'm still there.
Well, yeah, we have expanded in recent years, and we've got new facilities there. Today I'm actually talking to you from my home, but we've got new radio, TV, and podcast studios there because so many of our analysts are constantly, out talking.
When are you going to hire me?
Well, okay, I'll go talk to folks, see what we can do.
All right, thanks. Girlfriend needs a gig. So let's get to some of the questions, some of the comments before we start. Don't forget, you can catch Hans's writings at the Daily Wire. We're actually going to talk. It's so funny that one that you sent me today, Hans, I already had stories pulled about that topic. So great minds think alike.
Right.
So, which makes me feel good because Hans is really, really, really smart. So when I think the same way he does, I suddenly feel really smart and proud of myself. So I'm very happy about that. All right, let's see who's here, shall we? I'm going to be sneezing because I'm allergic to this cat. Oreo is in the house. Manglemush said, listening to Byzantine while waiting for Mary. Woot woot. Oreo, again, here. Watching Your Back is here. Scat is sitting here. He was scatting with the piano keys to the music playing. Oliver left. He's had enough because I started to talk, so he's not happy. Ori's back after 2 months. Yitzhak is here. Yes. Yitzhak, guess what? The Queen may be going to Israel. I have to tell you about that coming up when the plans get a little bit more solid. So I'll have to tell you about that. I just figured that somebody named Yitzhak would probably care about that. I'm going to stereotype. Porch View is here. Gregory is here. He said, Sally, no more rock and roll hoochie coo. R.I.P. Rick Derringer. I didn't even know A, that's who sang that song, and B, that he died. Did you know that, Hans?
No, I did not know that. Although I have to say, listen, I know a lot about rock and roll. In fact, I listen to the classic rock station all the time on Sirius XM when I'm in my car. So
can I tell everyone too that, there's my phone is going off. May I tell everyone, I have to tell everybody. So Susan and Hans and his wife, Susan, when Doug came down, when I was living in DC, Doug came down for a weekend instead of me making the trek home to New Jersey. And Hans and Susan took us out one night. We met up with them at Liberty Barbecue in, where is that, Arlington?
Yeah, Falls Church.
Falls Church. First of all, I have never had fried chicken like the fried chicken that I got there. That was absolutely insanely mind-blowing because they brine it with dill pickle juice first and then they bread. It's so good. So they had a band. And we're tapping our toes and you sit at like picnic tables. It's fun. And all of a sudden, Hans and Susan get up to dance. They cleared the dance floor, like cleared the dance floor. They're whipping around out there, and it wasn't necessarily like classical music or anything like that. They can dance to anything. It was insane. I was so insanely jealous. So we're
Well,
going to talk about that.
We did have a good time, and the band. The lead singer was someone I know. That's the reason we were there. So.
Okay. I thought we were there for the insanely good barbecue fried chicken, because it really was. Suze is here. Mangelmush says cats love free scratches. He does. He loves having his jowls scratch. Okay. Yitzhak wants to get right into it. So, all right, here we go. So we'll let Yitzhak get right into it. But then I want to come back and I want to talk to you about the dancing, but I also want to talk about what we did on the weekend. And then we'll get into some news if we have time, because we don't always have to have these hardcore news podcasts every single time. Sometimes we could do some other things too. But Yitzhak is going right in, right for the jugular. He says, dog with a bone. So here you go. Yitzhak says, follow up on Hans's last appearance here. He remembers you, so that's good, Hans. Or maybe not. Kamala's parents were not citizens or naturalized when she was born in Oakland, California. I maintain that fact pattern makes her not a natural born citizen. What say you?
Well, the issue on, my view of the 14th Amendment, and that's the citizenship clause, is that you're a U.S. citizen only if, when you are born in the U.S., at least one of your parents is a U.S. citizen. However, there's also a rule that says that if you immigrate to the United States legally and you bring with you a minor child, and this actually is the situation with my oldest sister. She was 3 years old when my parents legally immigrated to the U.S. They applied, were naturalized as citizens, and when they did that, their minor child also became a U.S. citizen under applicable law. But it's got to be one or the other. If you're in the U.S., whether you're here as a legal resident, like a tourist, and you're born here, you're not going to be a U.S. citizen unless one of your parents is either a U.S. citizen or, because of a over 130-year-old Supreme Court decision, if your parent is a permanent resident alien, the Supreme Court has said, yeah, you're a citizen. But like I said, if your parents are just tourists or they're here illegally and you're born here, you are not a U.S. citizen. But hey, the Supreme Court's going to decide that issue finally after a very long time.
Yeah, he brings up Article 2, natural born minor versus Happersett.
Well,
I can see Hans's brain is going like this.
Well, the whole issue of natural born citizen came up when John McCain was running, and because remember, he was actually born in the Panama Canal Zone when his father was stationed there in the military, and everyone decided, well, he's still a natural born citizen because he was born with his parents both being U.S. citizens. So, I as long as one of your parents is a U.S. citizen, when you are born, you are a U.S. citizen.
It's interesting because when I hear that, I think of all of the convenient marriages that are going to take place for money.
Oh, right.
Right. That's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to be marrying people for money. And then a year after the baby's born, they're going to get divorced. And we're going to see that happen over and over and over and over.
Well, look, that's long been a problem. But I actually know several now retired immigration judges and DHS, Department of Homeland Security. They are very good at very easily figuring out if a couple is getting married simply so that, one's a citizen, the other's not, in order to bring that person in, because it's very easy. They interview them separately and ask them questions. It's kind of like the dating game, they ask questions, and when it turns out that the two really don't know each other, don't know anything, can't keep their story straight on how they met, DHS can very quickly figure out it's a fake marriage.
Yeah. Star Driver's here late, and he says, you mean like Ilhan Omar?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a very odd situation.
Yeah. So someone's Oreo wants to know whatever happened to mail order brides. Is that still going on? I think it is. There's an entire show called 90 Day Fiance. And
Yeah.
instead of mail order now, you just meet them online now. But I
Right.
love that show. That's a great show because you're on TV. So there's no way you can skirt and get into some kind of like, you know, like just for the green card type marriage. It's on
Right.
TV. They're going to know.
Right. No,
So.
look, the biggest problem we've had in this area was just a couple of years ago, the Justice Department indicted and then convicted like 24 individuals who all worked for these three tourist bureaus in California. But these were tourist bureaus who were set up with only one intention: to bring pregnant Chinese women to the U.S. just so they could have babies here, so that could then be used to get other members of their family here. And they earned millions of dollars for this. Was basically an illegal smuggling operation. They
had entire hotels on the West Coast in California.
That is right. Right.
Where they kept these people. They would come over. And can I just ask you a question? I thought the Chinese people were all like peasants, and then like it was just the ruling class that was really wealthy, because this was costing tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And it was interesting because, for example, they told folks coming from China, don't fly directly to the coast of the U.S. Go to Hawaii first, because the customs inspectors there were not as good as the folks on the West Coast. And they trained them on how to answer questions from the Department of Homeland Security in order to get them into the country. I mean, that's how sophisticated it was.
Sorry, I have to sneeze. I am actually allergic to that cat. So whenever I rub him like that, I'm going to sneeze now throughout the entire show. Okay, he left my lap, so hopefully it won't be too bad.
That's okay, Mary. That's a trait you share with my wife. She's also allergic to cats. So
I'm not allergic to all cats. This one, we've had 4, and I've only been allergic to one, him. Because they say you're not allergic to the dander, you're allergic to their saliva. There's something in their saliva because they lick themselves so much it comes onto their coat. So he's the only one. The other 3 could get in my face, sleep with me, the whole bit. Everything's fine. I just started rubbing him and everything, and then it's like, so anyway, I'm allergic to a lot of things, a lot of stuff. So it's not surprising. So we mentioned you. How did you guys learn how to dance? Just tell me how you two learned how to dance, because you're phenomenal. Did you take classes, or are you just like naturally Fred and Ginger?
Well, Susan, my wife's been a dancer since she was like 8 years old.
Okay. So that helps.
We met in college at a dance. It's one of those stories. It's really true. We started dancing together at a party in college, and we were in such accord with each other that we didn't dance with anybody else for the whole rest of the party. And that was kind of how we started out. We did take a ballroom dancing class once or twice, but one of the advantages of living in Washington, D.C. is that there's actually a place here where every Saturday night they have a swing band live, and they play big band music. So we occasionally go up there and dance.
That sounds like so much fun. I could just sit there, listen to the music, because I love big band. I love that big band swing music, and just watch everybody dance, and just smack my husband every now and then because he is horrific. He cannot. We actually tried before we got married, taking a class so that we wouldn't look like total morons during our dance. And when I tell you he cannot hear the beat, he can't hear the beat. And he's the white guy clapping on the offbeat. Like, that's just who he is. And he tries, God love him. But after one lesson, they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, forget it." Because it wasn't happening. Yeah, yeah, he doesn't even have 2 left feet. Yitzhak says, dance, swing. My mom jitterbugged. Lindy, I love that. I have 2 left feet.
Well, they do that. They put on Lindy Hop demonstrations sometimes up at the place that we go to.
Ah, that sounds so amazing. He also said, I taught at Berkeley in New York City. Tons of Chinese students, in quotes, who could not speak English. For-profit school, these kids came with millions and had a spy who glared
Right.
at me after I made a comment. And that's what they're doing, right? They're just getting
Yeah.
these kids into the society. They're all spies and they never go home.
No, in fact, if folks haven't seen this, I think it was at Stanford, the college newspaper there just broke a big story, and it was all about how all these Chinese students who are on campus, many of them are clearly spies, and even the ones that aren't, apparently they regularly try to recruit American students, and they are required to file reports with the Chinese security police. So his experience in New York, that is not unusual at all. And in fact, like I said, the college newspaper actually broke this story recently out in California.
And yet, if we try to say, okay, no more Chinese students because this is going on, the left would scream. The left wants Chinese spies in this country. They're not all spies. You can't have all of them. You have to investigate each one separately, and each one gets a hearing because that's what we do in America. And it'll take forever to get them out because that's what they want. I don't understand what they stand for. I don't get it. It's just anything we're against.
No, I don't either. But everyone here needs to understand. Look, Communist China is a totalitarian dictatorship, and there's not a single student, not a single Chinese student who is in the United States who has not first been approved and cleared by the secret police in China. So anyone who thinks that anything different is not looking at reality.
Well, if Trump wants to get rid of them all, they want to keep them all. It's just the way that goes down. So, all right. So let's go to what we did, because this is important. This is why I wanted Hans to come on, because it's something that's not all just constitutional law and stuff like that. We actually do some fun stuff as well. And like I said, Hans is a fun guy. So I'm going to bring this up. Let me see if this works. Please let this work. And if it doesn't work, hold on. Let me just take this up. Let me just make sure. My husband wrote out directions for me. Use put the mouse on, choose the display template. Okay. So I'm going to take us off. I'm going to put the display template up. I had to click on that. Do I have to click on that? Hold on. I don't know if I did this right. Choose the display template, which would be this. Okay. So we're off. Can everybody hear us? You should be able to hear us. Put the mouse on the screen where the P, where that is. Use the, come on. All right. So what I'm going to have to do is, because it's not working. Could you hear me when I was talking there, Hans?
Yes, I could. Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So it says it's sharing my screen and my audio. I hate to start all over again because this is such a pain in the butt. And you guys don't need to hear me talk through this, but I have to start all over again. So now it's gone. Oh no. Now the whole thing's gone. What happened? This is terrible. What's happened? Okay, I got it. Okay, good. Okay, let me see. There's always something, guys, right? There's always something. So, where did StreamYard go? Okay, StreamYard should be back. We should be back. Are we back? I can't tell if we're back. Where we go?
Well, I can see you.
There we are. Okay. All right. So let me bring this one up. Okay. Click that. Click the presentation. Got that. Top left. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. And in the last window. Okay. Click here. Okay. Pick the entire share screen. Got it. Entire screen. Got it. Click that. Yep. Click that. Click that. Oh, look at me. Okay. Choose the display template, which will be this. Put the mouse here. Okay. And So this is what we did. So as you can see, we went to the National Memorial Day concert at Capitol Hill. So that's what we did. So now there. Okay. So my husband and I drove down on Sunday. So I got offered these tickets to the National Symphony Orchestra's Memorial Day concert. So I said, oh, well, that seems nice. And I've been offered these tickets before to different things, like to the 4th of July. And I didn't really want to go to 4th of July. Maybe I'll bring Hans and me and I'll bring Hans in here. Hold on. Over here. There we go. I'll bring us in here so we can kind of talk. So, and the last one was 4th of July. And I kind of figure 4th of July is a zoo, which Hans assured me it was a zoo. So I made a good choice to not go last year. So we came down on Sunday. We drove down to DC because I got these tickets. And so I texted Hans, I'm like, you guys want to go? Because we haven't seen you guys in a year. So they were in. Yay. And we could bring a picnic because our tickets we got VIP tickets. Now the center section, if you've ever watched it on PBS, is seats. There are folding chairs for people there's like people from Walter Reed, there's people from Fisher House, there's, the movers and shakers in DC, those type of people, Joint Chiefs, those type of people. Gregory says, imagine if Mary had 3 monitors. Hey, be nice to me, Gregory. I got it going. Let's be nice. Okay. There's audio coming up. So let's see if I did it right. So we went down, and so we just picked this hotel in Arlington. It's a Marriott, and outside one window, all we could see was this like abandoned street in Arlington because there's no one in the city on a Sunday. If you looked out one window, though, we could see the Washington Monument. So it was pretty cool. So that was very nice. So we meet Hans and Susan come and they pick us up at the hotel, which was very, very nice. We packed a picnic. We probably should have had more food, but I didn't know how much everybody was going to eat. So I don't think I packed enough food, but everyone was being super polite. So there was leftover food, but I don't think I packed enough. But anyway, so the person who gave us the tickets, where the chairs are, if you're looking at the stage, we're immediately to the right of those chairs. But we could throw a tomato on stage if you wanted to hit somebody if you didn't like it. We were very close. We had great seats. He saved us a really great spot with this big tarp. And we had our little sand chairs. And this is what was behind us. How cool is that? Isn't that? It's just gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. So here, look at how close we were to the stage. Like that's how close we were. Like these seats here. See the seats, these were like for like the people they had vets that were 100 years old, right? They had vets from every war. They had Medal of Honor winners, right, Hans?
Yeah, no, the folks sitting in the chairs were really impressive. They actually had a veteran of Iwo Jima there. I couldn't believe it. They had a veteran of Iwo Jima there. They had veterans from the Korean War. They had veterans from the Vietnam War, Afghanistan. They had 4 Congressional Medal of Honor winners who were up on stage. And they had not only great music, but they told stories of veterans who were in the crowd, what they had done, what they had accomplished, including, by the way, a Vietnam helicopter pilot who was part of the Army Ambulance Corps and had flown, I think, literally thousands of missions under enemy fire to rescue wounded American soldiers. I mean, it was a really moving event to hear their stories and to actually see them there.
Well, and this was not at all, I don't think any of us expected this. I thought it was going to be a concert, which is what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So what Hans is talking about, none of that was expected. Star Driver says, whatever you clicked on, Mary, off at Air Force Base just went to DEFCON 3. Very funny. Porch View watched it online. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. All right. So from here, let's go. Okay. So we went up on the stage because we figured let's go to the stage and get our picture taken. The gentleman to the right here is basically the bouncer who was throwing us off the stage, but he was very kind and let us get a picture.
Yeah. No, he took a bunch of the pictures for us.
He did.
I don't want to get him in trouble. He did get us off the stage, but then he took a whole series of pictures of us. But it, like I said, and everyone needs to realize what they're looking at. That was all built in the 2 weeks before the concert. All that was built basically in front of the Capitol in the big grassy area at the bottom of the Capitol steps. So that is not permanently there. That was built just for this concert.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was getting a little windy, and I'm watching this huge tarp thing that they have going on with this. It's cabled down with these huge cables and anchors and things. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if this thing's going to go flying. But the security guard, by the way, his name's Luke, and he was very, very nice. He was a very nice young man. And like Han said, he did take some pictures for us. So let me see if I can get this going. This is Scotty Hastings. He is a country singer who I'm not really familiar with, but let me see if we can get the audio. Is it going? So, okay, the audio worked. I'm so proud of myself. It's the little things. I have to keep the bar low. And so a lot of they had the choirs, they had members of the choirs from each one of the armed services. And so they were the backup singers. They're fantastic. They're really, really talented.
Well, they're all the most professional musicians. The military bands in Washington, D.C., that is one of the advantages of living here. The Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Army, they all have bands, and their musicians are some of the best in the country.
Oh, of course, yeah. So Scotty Hastings later went up. I've never really heard of him country music wise, but he later got called up on the stage because he was in Afghanistan, right?
That's right. Yeah, he's a veteran too.
Yeah, he was in Afghanistan. Oh, sorry. Okay. So now I want to share this with you. This next gentleman, his name is, I wrote it down, is Billy Joe Bowen. And he was in a wheelchair, and you could see his head right here. This is him right here. This is Billy Joe. Billy Joe Bowen. He's an Air Force veteran from Vietnam, and he currently lives at the Armed Forces Retirement Home. And he's on Facebook, which I think is hilarious. But the Armed Forces Retirement Home has a Facebook page. And so I kind of went over to him while we were eating and everything, because he was in his wheelchair and he was all by himself. Nobody was sitting next to him or anything. So I got up and I talked to him, and then I brought him some cannoli, and he was happy about that. Really super nice guy. So I took some pictures of him during the national anthem, and I just think everyone should have this much emotion when they hear the national anthem. And these aren't all the pictures, but look at this guy. Here he is. And the woman next to him is Marina. She works at the home. She was helping him to stand up. And he was just so happy. And that right there was when they hit the high note, landed the free. He had the biggest smile on his face during that. And this is this is the end of the song. I mean, and there were so many more pictures, but you could tell he was feeling the national anthem. And when it first started out and I saw him, I'm like, I gotta get pictures. It was just so touching to watch him, because I'm glad to see this coming back in our country, because I think it's been put on ice for too long.
No, you're right. And you know what was great about it? There wasn't a single protester there. Everybody there was very patriotic, and every kind of American you can imagine was there, and they were all enjoying the concert, and everyone I think was very much moved, like I said, by the stories we were hearing about what so many of these veterans had done, including the Congressional Medal of Honor winners.
Oh, yeah. Now, I don't have pictures of all that, so we'll tell the story. That's Gary Sinise. He was one of the host. Isai Morales was the other host. Right. I had a picture of the two of them together. Not flattering. So I just took the one flattering picture that I have. So Isai Morales is not in this one. Sorry. This is the Joint Chiefs. So you can see the big cables. See, this one's right in the middle of this guy's face.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out it's Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there should be Coast Guard too, right?
Right. I think this is the Coast Guard guy, or one of them that so this is Coast Guard. This guy's got to be Space Force because he doesn't have a lot of badges on his sash. So he's like, low level. So one of these is Coast Guard and one of these is National Guard, Director of the National Guard.
But one of the things they mentioned that we should let people know about is that they talk about the fact that this is the 250th anniversary of the Army, the Navy, and the Marines.
And interestingly, I am reading Brian Kilmeade's book about Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates.
Yes.
And it talks about the founding of the Navy, the Marines, and all, not the Army, but the Navy and the Marines, which so far it's very interesting. So all those gentlemen were there.
It's Mary, it's deja vu. The most powerful warships we first built, the frigates that we built, and the USS Constitution is one of them. Still a ship floating in Boston Harbor. Why did we build them? Because of the equivalent of terrorism in the Middle East, and they were sent to Tripoli to try to stop that. Yep.
And like you said, I don't think it says everything old is new again. I'm wondering if it ever went away.
Well, they did quit after our Navy went there. They did quit demanding tribute from all of our merchant ships going through the Mediterranean. So that at least was effective.
And you know what I found interesting? We built those ships for them, four frigates, and manufactured like 40 cannons for each one, except for the Enterprise, which is smaller, in the span of like 2 years. Right. I'm on I-95 in Delaware, and I've been driving that thing regularly for 5 years, and it's still under construction. I don't understand what happened. Unions. They didn't have unions back then. I think that's exactly what it is. But it was insane what they could do. They built the Empire. You're the one who brought up the Empire State Building. Wasn't that you who said they built the Empire State Building in a year and a half, and they're still working on 95?
Yeah, no, but that's a general problem all over the place. But those frigates, were very innovative for their time. And, the Constitution, like I said, which is still floating and which they regularly take out. Some years ago, they actually had sails made for it, and they sailed it out of Boston Harbor. I was there to see it. It was really spectacular.
Wow. That's crazy. Porchview Farm says, and I'm not going to put this up on the screen, I ran into Obama Secretary of the Navy at the grocery store on Sunday, and he spent a minute to listen to me about my dad's Navy service during Korea. He was very nice. That's good. All right, let's go to this one. This just gives you an idea, unless this could be video, this could be audio, but this is what it looked like. And like I said, we were very close. And if you saw it on TV, it really was so well done. It was crazy what a great production they put on. So this was at the end where they brought everybody up on stage. They were singing. They had at one point, and this was incredible to me. They had these people all from World War II, the vets that are still living from World War II, and I'm sure there are more than what was there. They had 2 Rosie the Riveters, 2 women, and the rest were all of the men who had gone overseas. And they loved it. They loved the attention, which I think they deserve. And I hope that well, first of all, I don't want to live that long, but if I do, if God's going to play a joke on me and I'm going to live into my hundreds, at least I hope he provides me with a good sense of humor, because they really had a good time. And we were leaving, and everybody was standing along the walkway because their buses pulled up and they were wheeling them out, and people were just standing there applauding them, and they're waving. Right. and they deserved every single second of applause that they got. It was really touching. And they had pictures of them when they went, and then the camera came to them now. It was, I did not expect World War II vets there at all. Like I figured maybe, like
Well,
Vietnam, that kind of thing, but that was pretty impressive.
well, there's fewer. Unfortunately, there's fewer and fewer every year. But look, it was great the way the audience was clapping as these veterans were taken down the walkway to load their bus. But Mary, I've seen the same thing at Reagan National Airport. There's one particular gate at Reagan National Airport where flights bringing veterans to Washington for ceremonies to see the World War II memorial come through. And I was there one day when one of those planes landed. All these veterans started coming through the gate into the airport. And the entire crowd of busy airport travelers stopped and everybody started clapping for them. It was just great.
That's got to be incredible. I'm so glad to hear that. I've seen video of it, but you don't know if it happens all the time. It sucks pointing out the honor flights that bring them to Washington, D.C. Yeah. Porchview is saying American women hold the record for a bomber built 23 hours and then flying.
Right. And women pilots, they weren't allowed in combat, but there were all these women pilots who were flying the B-17s, the fighters, from the factories where they were being built. They were the ones who then would act as the transport pilots to get them to where they needed to be.
Crazy. So we'll talk some more about some of the stories. This is the end here. Oh no, there's one more picture. It's loud. All right, that was loud. Sorry about that. I can't control the volume on it. Star Driver said both of my uncles were able to take their honor flights to DC before they passed. The one thing
great.
that I was talking about this gentleman, Billy Joe Bowen. One neat thing about being in the DC area is they do have Walter Reed, and they have a Fisher House, and they do have, the Armed Forces Retirement Home. There are more veterans, I think, concentrated there. And I just loved that they were able to be at this event. I did not know what to expect, but it was just so, I think I watched them more than I watched what was going on stage.
Oh, I did that too. Yeah, I did that too.
Yeah, well, they were right next to you, so you had a good seat to be able to see them. But to watch that guy Billy Joe, yeah, I want to make sure I get his name right. To watch Billy Joel stand up, he had to have someone help him. And a couple of times, I was like, "Oh, Hans, go get him," because he was like, I didn't think he was going to make it up or down, but he stood. He was standing for that national anthem if that was the last thing he did, and he did. Yeah. And I think of the people, especially young people, who sit on their butt or refuse to stand, or I'm not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever it is. And they should just spend a day at a Fisher House or at Walter Reed or at the retirement home for the armed forces. Just spend one day. And I think your whole perspective on the world changes.
No, I think it does too. By the way, you're talking about the great facilities in DC for veterans. It's something that people should realize too. Everybody, when they come to DC, they go to all the museums on the mall, and they don't realize that the Army has a new museum here. It's not on the mall, but it's worth visiting. And the Marine Corps has a terrific museum. It is one of the best.
Wow.
It is one of the best military museums I've ever been in. The way it's built and designed, the way the exhibits are done. It's just a half hour south of Washington, D.C. and Virginia, as people might expect, just outside the Quantico Marine Corps base. But that museum, the Marine Corps Museum, it's worth the drive to go see.
Wow, I thought we saw everything we needed to see in Washington. I guess not.
No.
Let's see. Gregory says all those old folks were born when they still delivered ice to house, and yet they lived to see men walk on the moon.
Yeah, that is amazing. By the way, yeah, that's why my grandmother, the word for refrigerator wasn't refrigerator, it was icebox.
When I was a kid growing up, we still called it an ice box because that's what
Yeah,
my grandparents called it. They called it the ice
exactly.
box.
Right.
So my mother was always telling us to get stuff out of the ice box because that's the way she learned it. And then finally it went from ice box to fridge,
Right.
the Frigidaire. My grandfather, when he was older, called it the Frigidaire because that was the brand, was Frigidaire. And then it just became the fridge, so from there. But when I was a little kid, I remember it being called the ice box, and not because the ice was delivered to our house. So just don't even think about writing that comment. Um, not that old. Yitzhak says, do you think we could do all that now? World War II stories are amazing and compelling. Why can't we do this now? Why can't we build a fighter in 23 hours and get it flying? Why can't we do that now?
Well, I will tell you from my heritage perspective that the biggest problem is over regulation. I mean, it has become so difficult because of government regulation and government agencies interfering in every aspect of manufacturing, building roads, that's why it takes so long and is so expensive to do almost anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we do have the will. I want to believe that those who refuse to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in school, those rotten little kids, and people who won't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, for the national anthem, I'd like to believe that that's a minority in our country. I truly don't believe that that's the majority. I truly just think it's just a vocal, attention-starved minority with, who probably need meds, or if they're on them, probably need to reduce the dose. I just like to think that's the minority. Star Driver says, I've been to Walter Reed when I worked for Ron White. It's very humbling. Oreo, okay. I saw you post this today, and I liked this. He said, Stooge great Richard Fisk, who he posted his picture. I do not recognize him as one of the Three Stooges. He was killed in action at La Croix, Avranches in France, while serving with the 9th Infantry Regiment, United States 2nd Infantry Division at 29 years of age. See, that's another thing.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't either. But here's the thing. Back then, even Elvis got drafted, right? Like Elvis went to the draft. You saw these people who were icons. And, in the 40s, all of the Hollywood greats, Cary Grant, all of them, Jimmy Stewart, got taken out, got put in the military, and then afterwards they came back, or sometimes not. And I think
Jimmy Stewart in particular, Jimmy Stewart was a pilot, a command pilot in the 8th Army Air Force, and flew bombing missions over Nazi-occupied Europe. The casualty rates for those B-17 crews was unbelievably high. He did not stay home. He did not stay home and make propaganda movies. He went and he fought. I mean, that's one of the reasons I admire him more than almost any other actor in Hollywood.
Yeah. I think I sometimes, actually, the older I get, the more of a curmudgeon I become, and the more I hate the younger generation. But I will say that Gen Z brings me joy. I think that they're going to be the generation that brings back what was America, that helps to make America great again. That's the under 30 crowd, is who Trump won the majority of. He got the majority of the under 30 vote.
Right.
So, what was it? Something like 60%. You would know that.
Yeah, no, it's a very large percentage. And look, it's think of the things they've been subjected to: censorship in their schools, speech codes that tell them they can't speak their minds. All those kind of things, I think, are driving them into becoming conservative and believing and understanding the importance of the Constitution and the First Amendment.
Yep, it's so important. Star Driver says part of the issue is all the electronics in the airplanes nowadays. Those planes they built at that time had very little. That is very true. That's very true. Yeah. Scott says 3D printing is being done for a drone right now. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people who 3D print drones. Yitzhak, we were so overregulated. I was raised red. Yitzhak is our famous former liberal. He was raised by communists. He'll tell you that.
Well,
And
if he's from New York, that means he was, that was the expression a red diaper baby, right?
Oh yeah, there you go. Red. I never heard that.
You never
Yitzhak,
heard
did
that?
you have
Oh, yeah.
No, I never heard that. He said, I was raised red and refused to stand. I got beaten up. We're all friends now. He was the soldier who trained the Three Stooges. The guy who died. You look back in the days, how many Hollywood types are military heroes? It's true. Gregory says there's a little museum in the Navy Yard. You need to have proper ID and wait to have your background check to get in, but it was quite interesting. Was that Udvar Havi? How did they say it?
No, it's the Navy Yard in downtown DC. He's right. It has a great little museum. I've actually been there. It's a wonderful museum. You can get in to the Navy Yard to see it. And it includes, by the way, a periscope from a Navy submarine that they've installed in the museum so that you can actually look through it. And the top of the periscope pokes out of the top of the building. So you can see the Navy Yard through the periscope. It's actually very cool.
Why do you need ID to get in?
Well, because it's the Navy Yard, and so Navy has all kinds of headquarters and other units there, and so there's high security there. But you can get in to see the museum.
Well, you would think they will. People aren't going to go to a museum you can't get in. Maybe they shouldn't have put it there.
Oh no, you can get in. You just have to be able to show an ID and go to the museum. I've been there. I took my kids there. It's a cool place.
Okay. Audie Murphy, Sergeant York. Yep, they're naming the people. I saw Audie Murphy's grave in Arlington. I saw that's one of the more famous ones. Let's see. Seems like Elvis had an option not to go, but he chose to go. I don't think Elvis actually deployed, but he was drafted, right?
Well, I think he deployed to Germany, but this was before.
Okay.
This was before. I think it was before Vietnam. I think it was still in the 50s. Yeah, Audie Murphy, I believe, was the most decorated American soldier during the war, and of course, then went off to Hollywood to make movies.
Yeah. And Yitzhak says, exactly, I was a red diaper commie camper. All right, so just this, there's one thing, because I want to go to the piece, Hans, that you sent me. We are having fun with this. Star said, I had to go to the Navy Yard to get a truck x-rayed so I can move it into a mall in the inner circle in DC for a Microsoft tour. So that's how he knows about the museum.
Right.
I guess that's like, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, by the way, another Hollywood star, people don't know this, is Eddie Albert, right? Eddie Albert, the singer. He was the star of, remember Green Acres? Green Acres?
Yes, I was going to say from Green Acres, when he's on a tractor. Green Acres is the...
Eddie Albert was in the Navy during World War II in the Pacific, and he won a Silver Star for bravery in one of the Marine landings when he took one of the landing boats in under fire to rescue Marines whose other boat had been sunk, and he won a Silver Star.
Wow. Incredible. It's unbelievable. Lastly, Hans, we walked back to, Star Driver says Eddie Albert, Captain Kangaroo, and Mr. Rogers. I was a big Captain Kangaroo fan as a young tot.
So was
Mr. Green Jeans. Mr. Green Jeans.
And Tom Terrific. Do you remember
I remember
Tom Terrific was the cartoon character on that show.
Oh, was he? Okay. I don't remember that. I was obsessed with Mr. Green Jeans and the bear. Remember the bear?
Yeah.
So we leave, we say goodbye to my friend, we give him his tarp back, we pack up, we applaud the World War II vets who we accidentally got in the midst of, but we applauded them, moved out of the way. And then we walked back to Heritage, and Hans chauffeured us home, but stopped long enough for Doug for the hubby to get that picture. Isn't that a great pic?
It is.
That's fantastic. So it was very kind of Hans to stop. Granted, he was stopped at a red light, so it's not like it was anything special. But it was still very kind of Hans to stop. So, all right, let me put that away. Remove that. Let me get us back. All right. So Yitzhak says that's a postcard. Yeah, I always want to say that we should just make puzzles of all this stuff, but I don't know if anybody does puzzles anymore. I love puzzles. I definitely love that. When I retire and I make a lot of, when I make my fortune and then I retire, I'm going to sit around and do nothing but puzzles so that my brain doesn't turn to mush. So you sent me a piece from the Federalist, which you can read. That's right. I forgot about the Federalist, Daily Wire and the Federalist. And it's called Only SCOTUS Can Reign in the Judicial Coup. And the interesting thing about this is you sent this at 10:27 this morning, but I had already printed out these stories about federal judges who have gone out of control. And these are the most recent ones. And you've got a federal judge blocking Trump's administration's the layoffs at the education department. You have to, and ordering them, you have to rehire these people. Ordering him to bring back, a judge in Boston, to bring back the illegals. One had final deportation orders dating back to 1999.
Right.
They all have final deportation orders. They were just never deported. And once these, and they are all, let's see, 5 convicted murderers, 1 convicted robber, 1 convicted child sex predator, and 1 convicted rapist. Several were also convicted of assault. 1 was convicted of kidnapping, in addition to the murder conviction. And this judge says you have to bring them all back to the United States.
Yeah, and the judge, look, the judge has no legal basis for that order. I mean, that's just the plain truth of it. He has no legal basis for that order. Look, we have an elaborate immigration court system. This is set up by Congress. It's a statutory system. If you are an alien, you're caught in the country, you're here illegally, you get a chance to plead your case in front of an immigration judge. If the immigration judge says, sorry, you are not entitled to be U.S., he then issues a deportation order. That order means you can be taken out of the courtroom as soon as he issues that deportation orders, taken to the airport, put on a plane, and sent out of the country. For this federal judge to say, oh, well, we're just going to ignore these deportation orders, you have to bring them back. That is a completely unlawful act by that judge.
So, and you and I have had this conversation a zillion times.
Right.
So you know what I'm going to ask you. What's the remedy for this? How do you stop this? Because they pick and choose, and people judge shop. I don't know how you prevent that. When it involves Trump, it just happens to go to the same 2 judges every single time. It's always, they're assigned randomly, except when it comes to Trump or someone on the right, in which case they always go to these judges. How do you stop this?
Well, there's 2 things that have to be done here. One is something that can be done immediately, and that is the Supreme Court has to step in and start coming down hard on these judges. Now, look, in the last 3 weeks, the court has started stepping in and has started issuing stays based on emergency appeals that the Trump Justice Department has filed. For example, various injunctions, the Supreme Court has said, no, those injunctions are not effective. They've done that in a number of cases. One of the most obvious ones that just happened was that Trump fired 2 commissioners at 2 different federal agencies, including the National Labor Relations Board. And, this judge said, oh, you can't fire these people. And the Supreme Court just issued an order saying, yes, he can fire those people. But the other thing that needs to happen to stop the judge shopping is Congress has to fix that. The House already passed a bill. It was actually sponsored by Darrell Issa. It was a bill that said that if you are going to sue the executive branch, particularly the president, for example, over an executive order, that case has to be assigned to a three 3-judge panel. Now, that means that you can't just go judge shopping randomly for the best judge, which is what liberals, critics have been doing, because you're going to have 3 federal judges on it. And the bill would say an appeal would go straight to the Supreme Court. That would cut down on the delays that a lot of these judges are trying to engineer. And it wouldn't be most cases that go to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court decides whether it wants to take the appeal or not, right? It's an option. With this law, the Supreme Court would have to take the appeal. That's the kind of thing that would cut down on judge shopping and hopefully cut down on the amount of time it takes to resolve these kind of issues.
Yeah, it's having to continually go to the Supreme Court and ordering them to bring these people back. It's, to your point, it's just delaying. They're just trying to impede.
Yes.
They're activists. I think these judges, though, like, you get overturned by the Supreme Court so many times and you're off the bench, right? Like, because you're just really bad at your job. I mean, it's like they think they're weathermen and they can just constantly get the forecast wrong and they can just keep their job. But they're screwing up people's lives with this. They're ruining. They can literally ruin someone's life with one of these rulings. And they did it with the January 6ers. They ruined many, many lives with that. And there's no way to hold them accountable. And that's, to me, that's the piece of the puzzle that's just not there.
Yeah, look, I realize it is a problem, with the system we have, it is very tough to do something about this. I mean, that's why the Supreme Court has got to step in and start coming down hard on these judges, as I've said. And that's one of the only ways to fix this. That will hopefully, Mary, happen on May 15th.
I was going to ask. Okay.
Yeah. May 15th, Supreme Court heard arguments in a case about birthright citizenship. That issue, the substantive merit, was not before them. What they were arguing about was the nationwide injunctions that have been issued by 3 different courts in Massachusetts, Washington, and Maryland. So they were arguing about whether those kind of nationwide injunctions were proper or not. And we're going to get a decision from them sometime between now and June 30th, dealing with nationwide injunctions, when they're proper, when they're improper. And I'm hoping that they are very tough and put down very strict rules that will help remedy part of this problem.
Where do you think Amy Coney Barrett lies on this? She has slowly but surely moved to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. Talk about a Trojan horse. She is didn't Mitch McConnell recommend her? Wasn't that one of his?
No, he wasn't. He didn't recommend her. What he did do was prevent Merrick Garland from getting onto the court, which would have been an absolute disaster. Because remember, the seat came open in the last year of Obama's presidency, and Obama wanted to appoint Garland to it, and McConnell said, nope, we're not approving anybody to fill that seat. So everybody needs to give him kudos for having kept Merrick Garland off the Supreme Court.
So Oreo says Barrett and Roberts, according to some, may have been compromised in some way because of their sudden turn to the left. I'm not asking you to neither confirm nor deny, but does that sound like something that is feasible? Can our Supreme Court justices be compromised?
No, I don't think that's the issue. I think, look, on most cases, I know people don't want to hear this, but look, on a lot of cases, for example, Chief Justice Roberts and Barrett are good, and they vote with the other conservatives like the Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. But every now and then they vote the wrong way. You know, Roberts really, the biggest mistake he ever made was voting to approve Obamacare. And Barrett recently, I think her problem is that she can't see the forest for the trees. She gets so
Right.
obsessed and focused on persnickety details that she doesn't understand or realize the from a 30,000 foot level what's happening in a case. And I think that's a mistake and an error. But look, they're still much better than the three liberals on the court who always vote the wrong way.
Well, Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't know what a woman is, so we didn't
Right.
start with a high bar, right?
That's
Yitzhak
true.
says Yitzhak blames Heritage. He said Heritage gave the prescription for Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh. That list needs to be burned.
Well, I don't agree with that, but I don't agree with that. I think we've gotten a lot of very good judges. Look, the real reason for the problems we're having today is because the judges that were appointed by Obama and Biden are the most left-wing liberal ideologues that have ever sat on the federal bench. And that's the real problem, because the vast majority of these cases get decided not by the Supreme Court. Supreme Court only takes like 80 cases a year. The vast majority of these cases are decided by the lower courts, and there are too many left-wingers on the courts now.
So Gregory says, to hell with these judges. Who's going to enforce the rulings? Pam Bondi? Give me a break. People seem to be very disappointed with Pam Bondi. Are we expecting too much too soon from her?
Oh no, they've been putting up a heck of a fight. They have been fighting these cases fiercely. And like I said, if you look at the decisions from the court in just the last couple of weeks, they've been winning at the Supreme Court level on a lot of these cases. That hasn't stopped lower court judges from issuing bad injunctions. But like the decision I just talked about, the latest one, telling Trump, yeah, he could fire those two members of those commissions. They've actually they're racking up a pretty good victory level. It doesn't seem like it, but they are.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does not seem like it. That's for sure. So, all right, let's see. What else do we have here very quickly? Yitzhak says that according to Mark Levin, Congress can create a specific court to hear the attack and the appeal and to SCOTUS. And,
That's right.
they go from there. So they can do that.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen, though, because the Republicans don't know how to do anything.
Well, yeah, except in one of the recent cases that Trump won at the Supreme Court, part of the claim, part of what the court said was, you filed in the wrong court. There's a specially created court by Congress called the Court of Federal Claims. Okay. And so if you are a federal employee, for example, who's been laid off, by DOJ, what the Supreme Court said was, you got to go to that federal court, the Court of Federal Claims, to assert your claim. And they basically said that what the lower federal court had done was wrong. So to some extent, that's already been done, and the Supreme Court is now starting to enforce that.
Yeah. Porch V Farm said she wanted the judge from Cuba. Who was it? It was either Amy Coney Barrett, and I thought it was an Asian judge, that it was between her and an Asian judge. Was I wrong?
I'm not sure what she's talking about.
I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Are we almost done here? At the district court level, Yitzhak is a lawyer. At the district court level is where the action always was. Appeals are expensive, so the law of the case would hold for citations and briefs if not overturned. Like Rudy said, prepare for battle. Star Driver, the AG and the FBI not only have to investigate these cases, but fight the Biden and Obama holdovers who are still employed. And they're going to be there for a long time. I mean, they're very smart with what they did.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true in the judiciary. On the other hand, the Trump administration has been laying off a lot of people in the executive branch, including trying to clean up the FBI and the Department of Justice. And that's a very important accomplishment, I can tell you, after having worked in the federal government.
Yeah. I think she says, yeah, she was not Asian. She was Cuban, the Cuban background of the person was between Amy Coney Barrett and this other judge. So there we go. Star Driver says 100 in the national, hundreds in the national security got national security got axed this weekend. See, now people hear stories like this. Oh, they got rid of 100 people in national security. Oh, we're not going to have this nation's not secure. That's not necessarily true, right? There's a lot of people who do not necessarily I don't want to say not important work, but there's a lot of redundancy on paper pushing, I think, in the federal government.
Right.
And there are some jobs where just because national security axes 100 people doesn't mean that we got rid of 100 spies or 100 people who were, monitoring secure connections or something like that. It could be somebody in the mailroom, right?
Right. Well, what she's talking about is there were 100 people, I think, laid off from the National Security Council. The National Security Council is in the White House. We have all these other intelligence agencies, the CIA, the NSA, the DIA. There's like a dozen different intelligence agencies, all with different responsibilities. 100 people at the National Security Council. Look, I don't know the merits of those folks, but the idea that that's going to severely hurt our intelligence capabilities, people don't realize how many tens of thousands of people we have working on intelligence matters. By the way, that includes the FBI. The FBI is responsible for counter intelligence in the U.S., and the FBI is a very large agency.
Yeah, we were driving home and we drove past the NSA, an exit for the NSA. And Doug said to me, he goes, when you talk to Hans on Tuesday, you got to ask him, what's the difference between the NSA, the Department of National Intelligence, the Secret Service, the FBI, like what's the difference between all of them?
Well, they have different responsibilities. The CIA is supposed to have spies abroad gathering intelligence. The NSA's job, National Security Agency, they're the federal eavesdroppers. They are the ones who use satellites and other equipment to try to listen, for example, to overseas phone calls, trying to detect terrorists when they're talking on their satellite phones and stuff like that. So that's very different from what the CIA is supposed to do.
And they never spy on us, right? The NSA?
Well, they're not supposed to, but they've been getting in trouble. They've been getting in trouble for that in recent years.
Yeah, for the times they got caught.
Right.
How many times did they not get caught?
Well, I don't know. But, a bunch of people, I think, have just recently been fired. I think it was from the NSA because they apparently had some kind of graphically explicit sex chat room.
That's right.
Amongst the employees.
I forgot about that. I can't keep up with the scandal after scandal after. Right. I can't keep up with it all. Star Driver says NSA is listening to your Siri, Mary. Ha! Joke's on them. We don't have it. We don't have Siri. We don't have Alexa. I don't turn the channels on my TV with my voice remote. None of that stuff. I don't. I'm already on a watch list. Hans and I are going to go to the same camp together. We're going to go to the same re-education camp together. And maybe our spouses will be in the same spouse re-education camp.
That could be.
I keep knocking my water over. I've knocked my water over at least 3 times. All right, I'm going to let you go. You can catch Hans's writings at the Federalist, at the Daily Wire. I will put the information up on when I post the podcasts. I will do that. And you can also follow him on X at H. Von Spakovsky. He didn't put Hans von S, which would have been the easy way to do this.
Well, if I was smarter, I would have thought of that, but I didn't think of that.
H von, because so when I first started working with him on radio in DC, and we would have him on as a guest, or he would come in and guest host with me if my co-host was out. I would mangled his name so many times, and I would rehearse it beforehand. I go, Hans von and I screw it up every single time. Now it just rolls off the tongue. The audio will be up on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Spreaker probably tomorrow. And next week, I am in for Wendy Bell on her radio show all week. It's 9 a.m. to noon. I'll post, you can watch it. It is a live cast as well as radio. So that'll be on Rumble. It'll be on YouTube. It's everywhere. So I'll post how you can tune into that. And also Chris Salcedo show on Newsmax on Monday. So thanks so much, Hans. Always fun time. Thank you so much also for the weekend. We had so much fun with you and your lovely wife. So thank you.
Well, we did. Thanks for having me. And thanks for inviting us to that concert with you.
Of course. See, now you're going to be in the know with our connections. Then you can start inviting us.
Right. Sounds like a plan.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
All right.
Bye. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay safe.